right, I'd like to call the Village of Cottage Grove, Village of Board of Trustees meeting to order on July 18th. It's 6:31 on my watch. We are holding this meeting as a hybrid, which means we're here in the Village Hall, as well as some folks are on the Zoom. The Zoom link is at the top of the agenda. There is also a call-in number and associated meeting ID also at the top of the agenda for those that wish to or choose to do that. We'll do a roll call. We have a quorum. See David up there.
Okay. Ballwig. Aye. Murphy. Present. Peterson.
Here.
Ratcliffe.
Here.
Stoa.
Here.
Valencia.
Here.
And Williams.
Present.
All right. We have a quorum, and the agenda was properly posted, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, we'll have public appearances, public's opportunity to speak. If you do wish to speak and are from the public, that's wonderful. We just ask that you share your name, your address, your municipality, and hold your comments to no more than 3 minutes in case we have a number of folks who would like to speak. So with that, I will pause. We'll look to see if anybody on the Zoom or in the room raises their hand, and we'll go from there. All right, we'll move then to discuss and consider our meeting minutes from our regular board meeting held on June 20th. Any questions, comments, edits regarding the meeting minutes?
This is Heidi. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
All right, thank you. Second? Thank you, David. Motion second. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor then? Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Next, we have a presentation to the board from Kevin, Managing Director of University Alliance. Here, please. Or if you prefer to stand, if you prefer to sit, make a combination.
Okay. This is like very,
Just make sure that the button at the top is towards you.
Sounds like it's already.
okay. Yeah, it's very like Watergate, you know, like, like the table and the people far away.
Let's hope not.
I guess it's like a little too close to home these days. Sorry. Hi, everyone. My name is Gavin Luter. Wonderful way to start a presentation. And I'm managing director of an initiative at University of Wisconsin-Madison called University Alliance. I know it's kind of a tongue twister when you say it, but essentially what I'm here to do is to kind of talk about a proposal that you all have, I believe, in front of you that Gabe and JJ kind of helped shepherd through, but Matt certainly does know about it as well. Essentially what I wanted to do was be kind of a face with the program, tell you a little bit about the program, what it is, and figure out if there might be an opportunity for us to work with you all. So essentially, the University Alliance is a network of people on campus at UW-Madison who want to make UW more responsive to the needs of local governments. Local governments have a lot on their plate, as you all know, because you're elected representatives. And so we have a lot of people on campus who could really be helpful to you all, but it's not always easy to figure out exactly who to get to and how to frame the projects appropriately and all that kind of stuff. So that is why we created a program called University Year, where we basically put a call for partnerships out across the entire state and say, hey, we need, you know, local governments can say, hey, we need help with a variety of things. Flooding, jail inmate reentry, teacher mentoring programs. Really, it's anything under the sun that the local government can and potentially could be involved in. And we've worked with 20 communities over the last 6 years. We started with Monona, and then we got to Dane County, Greene County, Pepin County, and now we've worked with a bunch of different communities of all shapes and sizes. We've worked with the Village of Marshall in Dane County, we've worked with Egg Harbor in Door County, and we've worked with Milwaukee County. So really, it's kind of sized to whatever community. It doesn't necessarily matter the population or anything. Just the question is, do you have staff and projects that you need help on? Is there an ability to have a financial commitment that you're willing to pay into the program? And basically, do you have a plenty of staff time that you can kind of help us shepherd through the projects? I know that the projects that are in front of you are promoting arts and culture, Cottage Grove Road revisioning, internal communications, library programming, tourism related to the Centennial event, and a walking park redesign. These are definitely all within our wheelhouse. We've done kinds of projects like this. I also will say I've actually driven by your village hall many, many times because I work with Badger Farms, which is right up the road, the venue. And we're actually working on a kind of a collaborative effort around the Koshkonong Creek, kind of a 50-year revisioning of what conservation looks like. So this is really open to any projects that you all have. Now, Gabe actually, spoiler alert, so y'all know Gabe is a new staff member. Gabe came from the village of Wanakee, and Wanakee was participating with us. Gabe kind of knew what it was like, what the program could offer, and was like, hey, there are some opportunities here in the village of Wanakee. I know Matt has been at presentations that I've given across the state as well. So really what I wanted to do was be here to answer any questions that you all have. The application that we have out right now is due August 1st. I told Gabe and JJ if there's a little bit of wiggle room that you need for timing. I know it's like summertime. I know people are out and all that stuff. But if you all need any extra time, we're happy to accommodate that. The main components of the application are basically tell us what projects you want to work on, prove to us that people actually want us there, tell us that elected officials know about it. I'm not going to name names, but we've definitely had people where the village president got an interesting idea and didn't tell the rest of the village board, and then they got voted out of office. Then everybody was like, who's this? Who are we working with? So we just want to make sure that the staff and the elected officials know that you're involved in the project, and it won't be a surprise to anyone. Tell us a little bit about your community basic demographics, and then tell us the contribution that you're able to make. I guess that is an explanation that I owe you. Yes, there is a cost to the program. You might be thinking to yourself, shouldn't this just be free? In an ideal world, yes, we would get state funding and do all the great things that I think we should be doing. We were put in the budget last year. We didn't make it through to be able to help communities pay for it. But we do ultimately fundraise for our cost. The cost that you all that we ask for you all to contribute is somewhere between $25,000 to $35,000. It's a range because we know not everybody can pay equally. But that doesn't cover our costs. This is just kind of you all having skin in the game. And I know here I am presenting, asking for taxpayer money, but I will definitely say that if there is not financial skin in the game, we've definitely had people kind of fall off the map because it's not real, But if the village board passes it, you can bet your bucks that Matt is going to make sure this thing goes well, and he's going to stay on top of it. Versus, somebody who's like, yeah, we got this volunteer thing from UW, and then we lost interest, and we stopped emailing people back. And I'm like, no, wait, I have students on the line who are waiting for projects. Please don't leave us high and dry. So the financial commitment does do that. It is a 3-year program. Year 1, we work with you to identify exactly what projects you want done. We then make the matches with courses at UW that will work on that stuff. Year 2 is we actually work on the deliverables. And then year 3 is where we help you all think through what are the next steps? How do we move toward implementation of these projects? So with that, I'm going to stop and see if there are any particular questions. I don't want to take up much more time.
All right, thanks, Kevin. I'll just start with the first question. I'm seeing that, both staff as well as students, faculty are involved in this. When you guys approach a project, are you grabbing from expertise, depending on the complexity of the project, across multiple disciplines in order to, one, get these students to work together like it would be in real life, and then gain that experience, and 2, to leverage that knowledge across all those diverse groups?
Yeah. No, it's a great question. Thank you for it. I'll give you yes, we pull from all disciplines under the UW-Madison banner. Unfortunately, we are just like a lot of other universities where unfortunately things are siloed. So you don't find a lot of engineers taking classes with psychology, students. So unfortunately, there aren't as many cross-disciplinary opportunities. There's a Master's of Innovation in Design Thinking. So sometimes they do take classes, or sustainability engineering. You get people who are just environmentally interested, taking classes next to actual engineers. But typically they are kind of within their disciplinary silos when the class actually gets assigned. Now that said, we've had some great examples of like public affairs picks up a project and works on a little bit of it. And then they're like, I wonder what sustainability engineering would think of it from that perspective. And then sustainability engineer hands it off to the mechanical engineers. They might actually build a prototype, for instance, of how to remove blue-green algae from the waterway, which is one of the projects that we did. So there are sometimes projects that lead to other projects that might get different disciplines looking at the problem from different angles. But unfortunately, there's not as many. I mean, I hope that's kind of the spirit. I don't want you to think like, yes, all these different disciplines, we work on the same problem in the same project at the same time. But we do pull from all different disciplines to help get on board with your specific projects.
Right.
That's a little probably insider baseball. Sorry. Answer the question in too much detail.
All right. Other questions? Heidi?
Thanks. I've actually done a little bit of looking into this in the past and talked to staff about it, and I don't think we had staff time to commit at that time, so I was excited to see this on the agenda.
Cool.
And I think there's some good potential with the different topics that were listed here, and we were recently talking about a bike and pedestrian plan, and similar revisioning. I mean, I'm sure that's why this is all pulled in here, but I think that there's a lot of potential and to get another perspective on them, and leverage the knowledge with the faculty and give real-world experience to young people. Let them hit the ground running to be successful in their professions.
Yeah, and who knows, you might be able to recruit a new staff member or two to be like, hey, consider coming to Cottage Grove, or they might be working at Ellers or something like that. Like somebody who might ultimately be going out into the world that you might be working with. I mean, some of these students are about to hit the job market. I mean, our civil and environmental engineering students, when they do a capstone project, the next year, they've mostly been hired already by engineering firms. So not all students are that close to being done, but most of them are. Yeah, thank you, Heidi, for your comment.
And it's worth noting too, there's 6 ideas here, 5 to 7, we just picked somewhere in the middle, but obviously if the board has a couple projects that they'd want looked at, we could bump 1 or 2 of these off and or add one to this list. It's kind of like 7.
Or you can kick your contribution up to $20,000 or $50,000 and get 14 projects. No, but yes, definitely. And I will say, and I was telling Gabe beforehand, like there's flexibility. I mean, communities, as you can imagine, apply with like great ideas, and then sometimes when you get in the weeds, it's like not feasible, or this went a different direction than we originally thought. So there's flexibility for that built in. That's why we build in a year before the projects actually happen, just in case there's any changes in your mindset, or like a new public issue pops up and you're like, oh, we need to swap this for that. So there's definitely time built in your schedule, but you can scale up if you want more projects. We've had a partner work with us right now. We have a contract with them for $100,000 that we're doing about 40 projects for. So I know that the staff are probably like, we can't handle 40 projects. It's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying it can be customizable to whatever you feel like you can take on.
So to that point, how much staff time does participating in this take?
Good question. The overall, there hopefully will be an overall project lead, whether that's Matt, Gabe, or JJ. That person, over the course of the partnership, we ask that we get about an hour per week from that person, just to make sure we're all on the same page and that kind of stuff. Then each individual project, all the individual bullet points that you see here, we ask that a person be dedicated to that particular project to give it at least an hour per week over the course of the semester. Okay. Now, sometimes it might be a little bit more. Say you have like 2 meetings in a week related to the project. Sometimes it's going to be less. Hey, we had a 30-minute project check-in. Everything looks good. We don't need to check in now. So, but I would say on average, it's about an hour per week with more of that time coming from the overall project lead that can kind of make sure all the people are like, hey, responding to emails, we know what's going on, and that kind of thing. So, and that's part of the reason why we're here doing this very public presentation is because that person needs to be in a position of kind of some level of authority to be like, hey, I'm picking on Gabe because I know Gabe. Hey, Gabe, you haven't emailed us in a month. Like, we need you to do that. And if it comes from Matt or something like that, it's like, okay, probably should respond because Matt's like the guy in charge, you know? So we need to have somebody who has the ability to kind of rattle the chains if things are not going the right way. But that's about how much
Okay.
time.
And the work is on an academic calendar, so no work would happen during the summer or
Well,
winter break?
actually, the more and more, if anybody sends their kids to college, you know, there are more and more summer classes that are available. So we actually do have a couple of projects that are running right now for Badger Farms. It just depends on the academic program. Generally, not as much happens in the summer, but there are a few things here and there, especially more sustainability minded. There are a lot of professional master's programs that start in the summer that are looking for projects to kick. But generally, yes, over the academic year.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had a question.
Oh, sure. Whoa. Hi.
Your shoulder chart. I fully think this is an awesome idea. I fully support this. But that said, I want to ask a question for someone who might be a bit more pessimistic than I'm going to be, right? Help me understand, you know, kind of the outcomes or the deliverables that we would get here compared to, say, a professional firm, right? So, and again, I'm asking this just for you know, historical sense here, right? Because someone might look at this and say, okay, if we pay somewhere between $25,000 and $35,000, you know, for 2 or 3 projects, that could also go to a professional firm, right? So help me understand like the difference between the deliverables that we get. Is there a difference? And again, I have my own opinions about this, but I wanted to hear from you, because I'm sure you've probably heard from other municipalities or people who live in municipalities that do participate in the program that are, you know, maybe look down upon the deliverables or think like, oh, you're just getting college kids to do work for, you know, for free or something like that. So I'm just curious about your take on that.
Yeah, thanks for the question, David. And wow, something trippy just happened. Okay, here we go. Some infinity screen just came up when you stopped talking. No, it's a really good question. Thanks for asking it. And to everybody in here, almost every single deliverable that we have done is posted on the website right now. So you can go kick the tires, see if this looks like it's good work, that you're getting what you paid for it. Now, of course, that said, yes, these students they have not hit the professional world yet. And they're going to be, I mean, I know we have Ellers in the room here, but like, I don't know, anybody who's ever done a project with a consultant knows that not all projects come out the way that you expect them to. And I would say that we have the same kind of failure rate as any other consultant has. There are some projects that totally tank. I will be very honest with you and let you know like some of the projects that they just were not up to standards. And even some of the professors are like, wow, we can't, like, I don't even feel comfortable putting some of that stuff out there. That has been probably 5% of our projects that's happened. But like I said, there are certainly times where I talk to people in the consultant world that are like, yeah, we've also had some projects totally tank, even though they're professional firms, and it's nothing about those particular firms. It's just, you know, the wrong person worked on it or whatever it is. So I would say go check out what we've done. I mean, I try not to choose favorites, but I would definitely say like civil and environmental engineering, industrial systems engineering, the Bolt Center for Arts Administration, you know, human resources projects, the Nelson Institute for Environmental Studies. I mean, these are all basically people who are about to hit the professional job market and or are already in the professional world and looking to grow their skills by getting a professional master's. So in a lot of cases, we are providing that same kind of level of value that you might get from a consultant. But in an effort to not get crosswise with consultants, I tell them, I oftentimes like frame things with village administrators or whatever, like, don't take this as like like, okay, we do this project and like, we're done, you know? This is like, come get some ideas, come get some design ideas, get your thinking clear before you go to a consultant. We've actually had people take our projects and go to a consultant and be able to save money on the consultant because they had background research done, they had a clearer sense of their vision of where they wanted to go with the project, they've had some public deliberation with it, in a way that sometimes people don't always do that until it might be too late, or like it's halfway through the process. So yeah, I mean, in summary, sometimes, yes, the project will stink. Usually that does not happen. Oftentimes they are pretty good. And if you don't trust me, go look on our website and you can see generally the projects have been pretty successful. And the thing about it that I don't know, I mean, you take this as you will, but like even projects that have tanked before, I've had village, city, county staff tell me it got us talking, it got us outside of our box, our typical kind of comfort zone. So even though it wasn't exactly like someone asked us about, you know, broadband, you know, in a really rural area. And it's like, no report that students are going to be able to do are going to magically be able to bring broadband into a rural area. They're like, but it got us thinking differently. It got us connected to some of the resources that we didn't know about. So even if it's like kind of a dud and it didn't exactly do what you wanted, people still report to us that it was still helpful to go through that process. But yeah, I mean, yeah, there will be some duds, but I think overall you'll see that the value that I think we bring, $25,000 to $35,000, is usually the cost of one project. And instead you get kind of a really good jump start on 5 to 7 projects. And that might even lead somewhere else to other connections that you didn't know about. It's hard for us to always kind of quantify exactly what your ROI is going to be. But I can tell you that Greene County loves us so much that they're gonna put in another application to work with us again because they've seen impacts that continue to give benefits 4 years after they've been going through our projects. So yeah, maybe not a perfect answer, David, but certainly that's it's kind of one that I think about that a lot, and I'm concerned about it, and I want to make sure that we're putting out good stuff. And I think generally people will tell you, and I think Heidi, you've talked to other people in other places. They told you like, yeah, it's like worth it. It's legit. You'll get good stuff. You might get some bad stuff, but you'll get some generally overall good stuff.
Yeah, that does help for answering my question. Again, I fully support this, but I think, again, for the fact that we're recording this and there's, someone might have a more pessimistic view of the world, or think that, why do UW students working on something that we have a professional, or, and I've always pushed back on that kind of mentality, having done some of this work myself when I was in grad school, right? Like, you shouldn't discount the work that students would do just because they're in school, right?
Yeah.
There's no replacement for experience, but at the same point, there's no replacement for an academic point. So like, there's always value in different viewpoints.
Yeah.
And again, I fully support this, and I think that, like you said, the money that the fee that's required here, you're going to get more back than so it's worth the money.
Yeah.
And David, we did talk at the staff level too, and some of the projects that are identified here, I think are likely things that, even with some additional staff that we've added, that we would just never get to on our own. Mm-hmm. So with this additional help, and we were thinking, if we batted 500 or 600 on these for the baseball people out there, or 50% or 60%. So if we did fine on 3 or 4 of these projects, I think we'd come out on the positive side.
Yeah, I mean, my soapbox is also like, you're helping us become a better university. I think public universities need to do more of this kind of stuff. So you're helping us give me some fuel to tell people at UW, like, look, people want us to do really like meaningful applied work. Please, please, please do it with us. So you're helping us become a better university as well. So that's also another part of it, is like, this is your way to help make UW more responsive to your needs. Because we can't have a platform, if we don't have projects, we have no platform to be like, people really want us to be working on their projects. So, yeah.
And then, John, I don't know if any board members have any questions for staff as far as, like what is Cottage Grove Road revisioning? We just had to put together just some quick ideas here, so Gabe or JJ could elaborate on anything if anyone wants.
Any questions related to the projects or anything else?
One thing that I was looking at the walking park, I don't know if we can bring in bicycling with that idea too, just because we're going to talk about the bike and pedestrian plan and something we're kind of working on together. So, you know, I don't really, just a little like small feedback thing. I think they go together pretty well.
I agree.
Yeah, totally. I don't know a park that doesn't have some interest in getting more, foot traffic and bike traffic there. Absolutely, yeah. And students love that. I mean, it's like extra thing, like, yeah, they want bicycle. Oh, great, that's one more thing, versus just like, just make it a park or whatever. They want to activate it, So having known the landscape architects and the planners pretty well, they love their biking. So you definitely won't have to worry about that not being included.
Otherwise, I really like the list for, presenting as, collaborating with staff and, like it's a good, I think, types of projects that I think would be beneficial.
I really wanted a variety of projects, and part of Gavin's talk when he explained it to us is these are things that we're passionate about. Maybe we can't do this in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, but this gets us in the right place to then, when we have staff, to be able to accomplish this in 6 years, when we have the budget for it. And so all of these are things that, as my 3 weeks here, 4 weeks here, I have seen us talking about, I've seen the passion for it, and so I felt these were good ones to start bringing up and present.
I am just curious about the arts and culture one. I haven't, can you give me an example, or what are we talking about there?
I think that was, so I kind of got that from Wanakee. Wanakee's did a lot with Ho Chunk. Like they did like 8 or 9, like a ton of projects with that. And that's just an area that I thought we could maybe grow on. We needed some more ideas, and so it was just a plug-in. But now that communications is here, that's kind of in my wheelhouse, and so I felt, let's try it.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, we also have like an MBA program specifically for arts administration people, and they worked with Wanakee to figure out like how to do culturally appropriate and humble like markers around town, or like how to honor the Ho Chunk Nation, but also we worked with Wisconsin Rapids on like how do you leverage the arts as a way to advance economic development, for instance. So I think also like when talking with you all, it's like, oh wow, it's interesting. Maybe we haven't thought about that before. How can we do that? And that's the idea with the projects, is like things that like, hey, we want to make some progress on. We don't know how to. That's the spirit of the project. And again, these things can change, of course, as things get down the field.
Heidi, it was kind of tied to, you had some ideas around beautification and arts and decorations, and that was kind of part of that too.
Yeah, that's great.
And with the re-envisioning, we talked about that as part of the bike and pedestrian plan, Cottage Grove Road, and yeah, I think that there's definitely potential.
Cool.
And on the road revisioning, green, I know it's kind of probably goes without saying, but that, sustainable features and just a fresh look at Cottage Grove Road.
I guess, and we're comfortable with the staff time that, like from our side. We have a couple new staff members, so I'm sure that helps a lot. But
Yeah, that seemed
not concerning.
minimal to me. And I mean, it might be spread around through a bunch of different staff, but it doesn't sound like, an hour or two a week it's like, I was surprised that's all it was. I was, in my head, I was guessing 10 plus hours a week. So this sounded good to me.
Yeah, and also just something, I mean, not to tell you all to do it however you want to do it, but also I know that in Wanakee, for instance, some of the projects were overseen by like a small committee of people that engaged maybe sometimes citizens, other residents, maybe even a village. I think their village board president was really involved in one of the projects. So, it's not to say that the, staff couldn't also pull in some other like super interested parties who'd be willing to work and do some of that groundwork for us or with us. So yeah, that's another thing, is sometimes they didn't always just lean on staff. Sometimes it was like really dedicated community volunteers who cared about that, and they knew we're kind of good for the commitment. So that's another option.
And I oversaw 2 projects, and most of the staff time took part at the beginning. What is the project? Where do we want to see? What are our goals, mission, values of this project? And then throughout the year, I met with them once a month for an hour. Here was what I was thinking, and they came back, here's what we thought, here's what our research showed. Did you like this? What direction do you want to go? And then we kind of went back and forth, and I made some introductory emails. I gave them a tour, but other than that, an hour is generous.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I said average, you know? It's going to be more sometimes up front, sometimes it's less ongoing. But yeah, it could be more or less depending on how things go.
I would just add that I think this is a good idea, and I think it also helps because it lets people outside of our community know more about our community too, which I've always been an advocate for.
Yeah.
And I will now go by parks, and if there's kids playing in there, I'll be like, ooh, it's activated.
Yeah, right. Activated parks, right. Yeah, it's a planning term, good old planning term.
So I'd like to make a motion to direct staff to pursue participation with university year program.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Sarah. And a third. Thank you, David. Any further discussion? I guess I have a quick question just on logistics. Application to August 1st. I'm assuming you can't take all applicants, or?
A dirty little secret is that we've never turned anyone away.
Okay.
But like, if this year we get like 15 applications, then we might have to do some negotiating. But I mean, I think the most we ever had apply was 7, and we were able to accommodate all those projects. As you can imagine, it's more than just an idea to apply. It's like, no, we've really got to be ready. So everyone who expresses interest doesn't always end up applying. But so no, I mean, no, we've never turned anyone down. I mean, I guess maybe this is the first year, maybe, but in 7 years, we have not.
Okay. And then secondarily, when really would you get going then with, is it when the students get in to the fall semester, or is it really circle back into the spring because you got to figure out when?
Well, yeah, that's why we try to give an entire academic year up front to make sure that we know exactly what you all want, scoped out projects, and then we make matches starting in the spring of 2023. Okay. Every once in a while, if you know exactly what you want, people come in the door having a very clear idea. We can work on projects like that next semester, but usually it takes a little bit of time to agree on exactly what we want the deliverables to be and who's going to be able to work on it, et cetera, et cetera. So we had a couple of Wanakee projects that kicked off right away, like the next semester after they applied. So if they came in September, we got things matched for that next spring. But usually I won't do the matches until that spring for the following fall. So we're kind of like a year in advance, and that's baked into the process based on what we learned. But like I said, if you're totally ready and willing to go and you know exactly what you want to do, we can get projects up and running pretty quickly. It just depends on where things are. I mean, some people took a long, not you all, but other places. I'm sorry, not Wanakee, but other places, it took them about 5 months to like get their project description forms in line because they were working with community residents or working with other institutions in the community, and like the school system was involved. So sometimes it takes longer than you might think, but yeah, it doesn't have to.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, we have a motion and a second then. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor then?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you all very much. I look forward to getting your application. Okay, thanks, y'all.
All right. Moving then on to unfinished business. And the first item there is to discuss and consider a resolution 2022-16, the resolution awarding the sale of $7.859 million in general obligation corporate purpose bonds series 2022A. And we have Greg.
Good evening. We have a copy of the sale report for the bonds that you're considering this evening. Just to recap the purpose of this bond issue that was authorized last month by the village board. This finances street improvement projects, parks and other public grounds projects, some equipment acquisition, and some facility improvements, all part of the village's multi-year capital improvement plan. We conducted a competitive sale for the bond issue this morning. We received a total of 7 bids. The winning bid was submitted by Piper Sandler out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. The final true interest cost came in at 3.4213%. The total net principal and interest due on these bonds, it's a 20-year term, is $10,983,301. That is $926,000 less than the estimate that we presented to the village board last month. So I'll briefly walk through the attachments after the executive summary and the sale report. First is the bid tabulation, shows all the results from the 7 bids that were submitted for these bonds. Table 1 includes the detailed listing of projects. There's been no change to the projects that were funded with these bonds. About $7.7 million of project costs were funded in total. Table 2 is the final sources and uses. As I mentioned last month, when bonds are issued, you need to identify how much of the bonds are going towards certain types of projects that are specified in state statute. So you'll see we break down the bond issue by the portion funding road, park, public works building, police building, water building, sewer building, and fire protection projects, but it is all part of one bond issue. We're able to downsize the bond issue by $100,000. It's because the issuance expenses came in lower than expected. So the final amount that you're considering for award this evening is $7,795,000.
And Greg, over the life of the bond, how much will that reduce the overall, wasn't that about $1 million over the course of the?
About $926,000 is what the total debt service cost is, less than the estimate. And that's illustrated on table 3, which shows the amortization schedule for the 20-year bonds. See, again, the total debt service is about $10,983,300, which is $926,000 less than what we had estimated. So very good results for the village.
Greg, sorry, real quick. That delta then is primarily due to our bond rating, or is it just the thirst in the bond market right now?
I'd say it's a combination of a couple of, really of all of those factors. The village's bond rating is very strong. Your rating is AA, which is very good. What's been going on in the market really over the last week and a half is that we've started to see bond yields start to decline. So that's been beneficial just in terms of timing of the market. And then third, just in terms of this particular week, I mean, it was a little lighter week in the bond market. So, I mean, I think that's evidenced by the fact that you got 7 bids. It's a very strong number of bids, and you'll see on that bid tab that there were underwriters really from throughout the U.S. that submitted bids on the bond. So it's never one factor, usually just a accumulation of several factors.
All right, thank you.
Table 4 is the multi-year tax impact analysis that we presented last month. Includes the village's existing debt, and then we've modeled out future debt issuance from 2023 through 2027 based on a preliminary capital list that has been identified for your capital improvement plan. We'll be updating this and presenting it as part of our financial management plan that we present to the village board every fall, so that we'll be talking about this again in about another month and a half. But in terms of kind of that long-range look, you'll see in that debt service levy column, second column over from the right, your debt service levy for the 2022 budget was approximately $720,000. The projected levy for debt service next year is projected to increase about $171,000, which is a little less than what we were estimating, again, due to the lower principal and interest costs over the life of the bonds. So we always like to take a multi-year look at the village's capital needs, just to make sure that we're taking into account not only present capital needs that we're funding through these bonds, but looking at needs long-term. The final information that's included in our sale report is just a copy of the rating report from Standard & Poor's. I encourage you to take a look at that at your leisure. It provides a nice independent assessment of the village's overall financial and economic strengths. I want to commend Matt and JJ. Both did an excellent job on the rating call in terms of presenting information about everything that's going on in the village. Your A lot of the strengths that have been noted in the report are still reflected in this year's report as well. Very good budget flexibility, strong liquidity in terms of your fund balance, strong budget performance from year to year. The village lives within its financial means, and then certainly we gave them an update on a lot of the economic development activity in the village as well. So a lot of positive comments from S&P reflected in their rating report. So in terms of the action item that's on your agenda, it's the resolution to award the sale of $7,795,000 of general obligation corporate purpose bonds. If you choose to approve that resolution, there is a bid form that the village president, village clerk can execute this evening, evidencing your approval of the sale. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from board members?
I have a really quick random question. When I look in the tabulation, I see that Piper Sandler and Company was total with bond, but I also noticed Cantor Fitzgerald and Tracy Securities. Can you just, and again, maybe this is a random question, but just can you explain the relationship between Truist and Cantor and the bondholders?
Sure. So Piper Sandler is really the lead underwriter on the bonds, and so typically if underwriters have what you call a syndicate, which is kind of other underwriters that may partner with in terms of whom they're selling the bonds, that's who Cantor Fitzgerald Securities is in this case. It's part of the syndicate bid for Piper Sandler. So Piper's the lead underwriter. Cantor's part of their syndicate that's willing to agree to purchase some of the bonds as well.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion that we award the sale of $7,895,000 general obligation corporate purpose bond series 2022A as presented to Piper, I lost the word, Piper Sandler and Company.
Do you want to modify that to 7?
Did I read it wrong? Oh, I read it from
You
the-
have it right on the agenda, but it lowered by about 100,000.
Oh, okay,
It's on the front.
sorry.
It's on the
Yes.
front of the page there, Sarah.
Okay, well, thank you. Yes, I will amend it to that amount.
All right, thank you.
Second.
All right, we got a motion from Sarah, second from David. Any further discussion?
Thank you, Greg, and staff for working on this and presenting a clear presentation.
You're welcome.
To understand.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Heidi. Any other further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor then? Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstained? Motion carries. Thanks, Greg. You want right here, right?
You guys should see the paperwork that comes after this to actually close on $8 million of stuff. It's a lot.
I can't wait.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
Most of the fee is in the paperwork.
Registering it, et cetera, yeah. Next up, then, we have the 2022-2023, I can't believe we're saying 23 already, board priorities resulting in the ranking process and discuss the next steps. So, Matt, you put together information in the packet. You want to walk us through that?
Sure. I don't think a lot of discussion here tonight other than getting the the rankings in the packet and to put everything kind of on one, to get one view of everything. We also added the mission, vision, values underneath that this year. And then something I felt maybe I hadn't explained well in the past, and Gabe helped me on the visual here, but this step-by-step process. So you can see we're only at step 4 in this process, and to just show how ultimately we have to take it from here to implement the priorities and what that entails. So that's what the that the 8 steps there. So the next step would be probably both meetings in August. We'll talk about roughly generally the top 5 or 6 priorities, check to see how they align with what we're currently working on. I wouldn't be too alarmed if we're not working on some of these at all, because the staff goals were developed in December and these were developed just now. So, and then in the past, we generally referenced them as like these were the 2022 priorities, but I kind of had an aha moment that really the 21-22 priorities are still being worked on too. So there's a little bit of a half-year overlap. So these are really the 2022-2023 list. So happy to answer any questions, and hopefully I got everyone's vote totals right. Feel free to correct me. I shouldn't say votes, just your informal points on everything. So that's all I have.
Thanks, Matt. Any questions, comments from board members? Everyone's excited about the 8-step process?
Well, I was just add that one other comment. This is definitely a poor man's version of a strategic plan, but if the board's happy with this, I think it gets us closer to that without spending, 25 to 50 grand on a consultant to walk us through this. So.
No, I agree. Any questions? And it's actually nice to have a formal process so we can repeat it and adjust accordingly when we learn. So my little tongue-in-cheek there was just tongue-in-cheek. So if there's no other comments there, then we can move on to discuss and consider the purchase of a leap vac. JJ put together, along with Brian and Matt, staff report. So JJ, I don't know if you want to start it off.
Yeah, I'll be brief. Following direction, a month ago, Brian and I reached out, and essentially we got the same answer we anticipated from a lot, except for McQueen, who said, we've got one coming soon. Here's the price, and you can buy it. Brian just let the vendor know when our next meeting was scheduled, and could you hold it until tomorrow morning? And so, really, that's the item for consideration. Otherwise, the answers, and they're having a hard time giving us an answer on timing on truck chassis, basically, is timing on delivery is out a year, prices increase without any, knowledge for the vendor. So we got the best answer we could from McQueen that a purchase could be planned in the future year, but there's still a lot of uncertainty out in that market right now. But the immediate issue is they have exactly what we would most likely be looking for at their shop right now.
So do you have a vehicle to put it on?
They actually have the entire unit built. It was delivered, I think, 10 days ago. But it was to be their demo model. And so that was the part that he stipulated in the proposal that you got this morning. Apologies for that. It should have been in this packet. But basically stating that they reserve the right to demo it this fall, but then we'll give a full factory warranty starting from the date of delivery for whoever purchases that unit. And then basically, we've talked about it a lot, but that would mean a staff person, which for the immediate 2023 budget is a person in the fall next year, and then continuing forward. So I think we covered all those considerations in the memo, but I know we've talked about it in the past too.
JJ, just to tie in something later in the agenda around if we were to go with Purple Cow for compost and mulching, I know you mentioned in there, I'm looking at you on the TV because I can't. You mentioned in there savings of staff or staff time doing the chipping and some of the other fees. Would any of that help offset any of this expense?
Not really.
Okay.
Yeah, they it'll kind of be independent of each other. I think, maybe in the future, but I think basically we've got a lot of residents that are going to still bring their leaves at their convenience to the Bonnie Road shop. So I don't anticipate a huge savings immediately in transporting the compost from that spot.
And were you planning on having additional staff in your budget?
I always start with additional staff. John's been on Public Works, it's always there.
I was setting you up, see?
Well, and to his credit, Brian's experienced in, decades in Public Works as well. So he kind of knows that we're not all that unique, and that Brian and I will both tell you all that we're understaffed every year. And that's not unique in mid-sized municipalities, public works departments. But that's just us treading water, so that's why we do kind of give a little more urgency when there's a new service discussion, that we really, really strongly recommend that any new service bring some staff with it. So, but yeah, we'll always ask for people just to get.
So starting in '24, then it's $90,000 to operate this thing. We run into a little bit of levy issue, 25, 26, right? It gets tight. So just think about that, because you're going to run into, when we look at all our priorities and put everything back on the spreadsheet that Greg just went through, you're going to have this extra layer of 90,000 in there starting in '24 that you got to take care of. And we already know we have another 100,000 for the next 3 years for EMS. So it's a brand new service. You may want to think about having that layered into the budget plan before you say yes. Just a word of thought.
Roughly speaking, as far as the operations of that 90,000, you think it'll run about half the year?
Once we're up to speed, probably, everything, anecdotally, it's once that first leaf falls, and then until the snow makes it impossible, and then you end up offering a cleanup in the spring as well. So yeah, everybody that does it.
So just to be clear, during other times of the year, this staff person, the cost is the cost, but that person would be snow plowing and doing other public works things, so.
And as far as the storage of the unit, you mentioned it in here, but it sounds like if we were to get this one from McQueen, you'd only be able to put a roof over it, not.
It's hard to phrase it in a memo, but yeah, it won't be ideal, where ideally when things are designed, whatever piece of equipment is, you send an operator and they can get right in and pull right out of your shop. We're to the point where something may have to move before it can be out, but yeah, we can get a roof over it, which is the biggest thing. I mean, but yeah, it'll be fit somewhere versus it's got a spot waiting for it.
I was wondering about the staff person, if any of the costs can be affiliated with the utility budget?
I think that would be a conversation that we'd have maybe, depending on, I guess, the outcome of this discussion. But yeah, it might be, if it's similar to our public works technician's position, yep, the percentages would likely be there. It would probably have to be a conversation with a new finance director when they're on board, just to see exactly how, because 6 months of it's going to be public works, general fund funding, but absolutely, most likely it's going to be some portion of the utilities for any of our positions.
Thanks. I guess my other question was, this one that we have a quote for, more or less than what we were expecting in that, just like rough idea? I don't remember the number we were thinking about before.
It's kind of changed over the times it's been brought up now over the past year when I've talked to vendors. It's definitely less than I was anticipating when we reached out a month ago. And then their answer to the question of what if the answer is no tonight is kind of back to, I believe the actual quote was, it'll definitely be way more than 300,000. We also plan, this particular vendors in factoring a 10% increase across the board, which means their costs and truck makers. So less than I was anticipating we'd get this time, but it's really just a kind of a lightning strike that they had this coming.
And also, so everyone's clear, we are intentional on sitting on the fence, for lack of a better term, when there's a new service proposal of any kind, we're just here to present the facts and information. And if, if the board wants to fund it, we'll provide the service. But and once a new service is brought on and it's existing, then we'll take it from there. But we found that's the best way to approach these sort of things. So.
I do have one other question I thought of, and maybe Gabe has some ideas on this. And I think one part of a successful leaf collection program is residents knowing how to use it effectively, because otherwise leaves are in the gutter, and that creates more problems for the environment than leaving them on your yard. And when we're picking up, and what to do if it's going to rain and your leaves are new. So I think communication strategies around that, so we don't put more phosphorus out there by offering this that's supposed to reduce it. But I do think that it's important in an equity side too, like seniors that are able to stay in their homes longer because they have this service available to them. They may not be able to haul leaves to the site as easily, and we have a lot of new neighborhoods. Their trees will be getting bigger as the years go on too. So, but I am hesitant looking at adding to staff with like outside of the full picture. So I guess that's my one hesitancy.
Let me ask this question. Let me ask it because I think we all understand, right? Getting the truck is not the issue. It's staffing the truck is the issue, right? With the OpEx there. I guess what are the downsides to not purchasing a truck? Let's talk through. Like you said, you're understaffed as it is. You have to add more staff anyways, right? So I'm in my head. The argument that I made was you need to add staff anyways. This truck will run a good amount of the year, but that's also, you still need other staff anyways, and that truck isn't gonna run 24/7, which is fine, right? So I'm trying to make the justification in my head that this new staff person will be available at times for other tasks as well. But I'm just curious on your take, around the fact that you need more staff full stop, right? Would this additional staff person be able to help in certain?
Absolutely. I think that's at the risk of going against what Matt just said 1 minute ago, that's kind of obvious, as he pointed out, that it'll be 6 months a year, but it's half a person that we absolutely could use the rest of the year. That said, I think I could probably argue equally either side of this, which is perfect for a new service that I don't want to offer a recommendation on. I think you can find arguments on each side, but yes, for 6 months of the year, maybe more, maybe a little bit less, we'll actually get some help we need. So that's fair.
Let me ask it in a different way. If we said no tonight, for next fiscal year, you have to add a new head. Right?
There's a difference between have to and we'll keep doing it. I mean, Brian's going to help a lot, honestly, as much as it doesn't seem like it on its face, having Gabe and Brian come on help ease certain loads, even with field staff. So we're in a much better place than we were every other year. That said, if I went and looked at comparables and, when Brian and I really talk about where we want the department to be, we'll request it. But without a new service addition, I think I could fairly say maybe not even as much as in years past with the additions we've made in the last couple of years. But again, that said, I think comparably, if we look at it, we're still either the most efficient staff in the area or understaffed, however you want to phrase it. But we're finding efficiencies in a lot of ways. So,
David, I could clear it up a little bit more. If it wasn't for this service, JJ could request a staff person, but I would be cutting it because just looking at the levy alone between Deer Grove VMS and inflation, cost of living, there's not going to be much wiggle room after that. So we'd probably be able to make it work, but not much else beyond that, and we don't know what other departments are requesting, and so that's.
I think my takeaway from that is it sounds like Dave's gonna be driving himself out.
As long as he gets a CDL.
That helps me. Jokes aside, I don't know. I'm on the fence. I don't know.
We do get some relief with some of the TIDs rolling off here in the next couple of years too, so that's going to help. But it's going to be, as Matt said, it's going to be tight for the next 2 to 3 years.
I don't think we'll feel the impact of, that's more like 2027, I think, that we would, maybe some in 26. And TID 7, which has Old Town, the Old Town area with 1855, that TIF district closes
23, right?
next year, but it's pretty modest in comparison to TID number 5, so it's nothing, it'll help, but nothing too substantial.
I have a question for Gabe. Gabe, do you feel like you could help us with a social media campaign on how to better clean up leaves if we don't have a leaf vac truck? I mean, I guess either way, we're gonna have to, we need to do a better job at educating our community on what to do when because we don't have a leaf vac truck. And then, or we'll need to educate them on, now we have a leaf vac truck, here's what you do. I don't know, I'm just curious from a communication standpoint if you feel like there's opportunity to improve our current.
I would say so. My goal that we're going to be establishing, that we'll talk later in my report, but videos will be a big thing that our communications will do. And that will definitely, could easily be a topic of, here's how you maintain your yard. Here are the services that we provide. Here are the resources that we may not provide, but that are available to you as a resident of Cottage Grove, as in Dane County. So yeah, I would say so. With the HVAC or the leaf vac truck, we would have it as a tab on our website. We would have a social media post, here's the new service, here's how it goes, here's the schedule of it, that kind of stuff. So I'm already kind of thinking about it, but yeah, I wouldn't say it would be too difficult either way.
Okay.
We can make it work. And what I do is also research the communities that offer this service and see what they do, see how it kind of matches with our community, and then kind of draft it from there.
Yeah.
So either way is doable.
Is the idea that we would pay for this truck then with the ARPA funds? Is that kind of what that's kind of how the discussion started, is that
Right.
the idea here?
I think it's deciding whether or not to do the service first, and then we'll figure out how to pay for it afterwards.
Okay.
Because the ARPA funds, the discussion, it's wide open now as far as how can you use those funds, so there's certainly other options as well. So,
We wouldn't have to pay anything until next year when it's delivered. Is that how the proposal then?
Yep.
and again, it's about operating it, it's not about the machine. I'm more inclined to put this with a discussion with the priorities and the budget, so we can see how it stacks up against all the other things that people have put in as priorities. And then we have a comprehensive decision then we can make with this new service and other things that are under consideration.
Yeah, I think this should be part of our budget discussion. Rather than, even though this is very tempting and is interesting how it fell into our lap, and I really want it, but I, looking at the operating budget, knowing what library services are, or what library board's going to be talking about this week, it's hard for me to go with the additional staff for public works at this time without knowing the full scope. So that's where I'm at with this, even though it pains me a little bit. But I really appreciate this discussion. And JJ, thank you for putting this together and looking into it further. And I appreciate all the conversation around this, because I think it is important to know that we have looked into it and thought about it and are continuing to do that, because I did just talk to somebody this weekend that really wanted it. But I think we do need to look at our full budget scope for all services rather than just this specific item.
So do we need a
Motion
motion
to probably just table, I think, or to include it in the priorities.
Right.
I mean, JJ's already written the memo that he has to include, so he's already knocked that out.
So a motion to include the leaf vac truck in our priorities and 2023 budget discussion?
I'll second it.
All right. One way to do it, yes. Very good. Thank you, Heidi. Thank you, Melissa. Any further discussion? Having heard none then, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. Next, we have, moving on to the new business. First item up is discuss and consider resolution 2022-17, resolution to protect reproductive justice in the village of Cottage Grove. Melissa put together the resolution with staff, I think. Yeah, I think. And so I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, John. And I thank our attorneys for helping with this. And the reason why I brought this forward to our village board is because the recent decision by the Supreme Court affects half of our community and our families. And I think it's important for us to share our voice with those who have already spoken out against the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, so that people know that they're not alone, that the majority of Wisconsinites agree that Roe v. Wade should not have been overturned, and human rights should be protected in the Constitution. Roe v. Wade protected the rights of women and people who can get pregnant. So the ruling on Dobbs has opened the door to those looking for ways to enact laws to attack our LGBTQI plus community, including marriage equality, and it's leading to attempts to outlaw contraception now too. And I could go on and on about all sorts of stuff with this, but basically, as the resolution states, it's to protect reproductive justice in the village of Cottage Grove, and just to add our community's voice to the discussion. And I I'd like to send this on to our leaders in the states and federal governments as well, just so that they know that it is a discussion at a very local level, and that our community is standing with women, basically.
Thanks, Melissa. Any other comments, questions from board members?
I just have a quick question. I know other communities, they've gone so far as to say their law enforcement won't arrest or issue citations. Is that part, I know it's not part of the resolution, is it part of any of your recommendations or?
So we looked at that, and the medical facilities in our community didn't perform those types of services, so that's why we left it out.
Okay, thank you.
So I would make a motion then to approve Resolution 2022-17 regarding protecting reproductive justice in the village of Cottage Grove, and to send this to Governor Evers, our U.S. Senators, Representative Pocan, our state legislators, and Attorney General Josh Call.
All right, thanks, Melissa. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Brittany. Third for David. Any further discussion? Having heard none then, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Any abstained? Motion carries. Next up, we have discussed and consider the liquor license application from Dollar General for the licensing year 2022 of July through June of 2023. Lisa, anything on this that we were a little bit tardy, that's all.
Yep, it's just that their application came in late, so this has been, the background has been done and the background checks on the agent, so it's pretty straightforward.
Any other questions from board members?
I'll move to approve the liquor license application for Dollar General for licensing year July 2022 to June 2023.
All right, thank you, Sarah. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Heidi. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. Next up, we have to discuss and consider a date for the budget workshop. It's moved around a little bit, didn't they? Is this still correct, the 15th or 16th? I know we had other dates thrown around too.
Yes,
That's-
the 15th, the 15th or 16th is correct as the two options for the budget workshop. And we're a little bit condensed here without having a finance director and trying to allow for as much time as possible. And as you go through the list of items that we have to cover throughout the process, there's really not a lot of wiggle room. So that's why we're kind of down to a couple days to pick from there. And if I could nudge you in one direction, even though it's one day, the 15th, if it works for most, would be, that would buy us an additional day on getting the publication ready for the papers. We have to notice it 15 days in advance of our public hearing, which is on December 5th. And then I'll certainly update this as the highlighted items get confirmed. The Finance Committee, the one listed for September 13th, which needs to be confirmed, is actually now confirmed as September 12th. So I'll get everyone a fresh one of these once it's finalized.
Any concerns with the 15th?
Of November, is that what we're looking at?
15th works better because library board meeting is 16th.
Okay. Thank you, David.
15th works for me.
Any concerns with the 15th?
Yeah, I have another meeting that night, but what time are we starting?
5:30.
5:30. Is that just a bill? So can you remind me again what the workshop will entail?
The workshop's basically that's the main meeting where the board makes substantial changes. There's still one other opportunity at the public hearing, but generally at that point, unless you've heard feedback from residents and you guys want to make an amendment to the proposed budget, we publish a preliminary budget following the budget workshop, and most years, other than maybe an item or two, it pretty much ends up being that. So a pretty impactful meeting.
And it's late, that's what you were saying, like it's later than usual.
It's the same time frame as last year's, but usually we'd be maybe getting the public hearing might be at the second meeting in November, which in case there's ever a lot of debate, we could push things into December. But this time frame basically has the board will have to approve something on December 5th. So we'll have the public hearing, and then we have to have adoption of the budget at that same meeting. So there's just no wiggle room. However, in 11 years here, there's only been maybe one or two times that there's been a change at that meeting, and there's never been a desire to, when there was wiggle room, there was never a desire to use it. So feel pretty comfortable with this time frame. And actually, we like it better as staff because we have a better opportunity of having more accurate numbers for everyone to consider instead of things being more of estimates.
Okay. We'll make it work.
All right, so this discuss and consider, does somebody want to make a motion on this then? Motion to have another meeting. That's
I'll
good.
move to approve the budget workshop date of November 15th at 5:30.
Second.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Sarah. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor then? Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries.
So what about the other two dates that are in yellow there?
So those are being figured out by the Budget Review Committee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so one of them's finalized, that top one is going to be September 12th, and then, so the only other, they could even choose to meet on September 12th, and then at the end of that meeting, they could pick November 8th or 10th, but we're working right now to solidify that date.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Good. All right. I'll move on then to reports from village boards, commissions, and committees, starting with Parks, Recreation, and Forestry. Heidi?
Great, thanks. Digging back a little bit, since we didn't have our meeting 4th of July, so hopefully I have good notes, otherwise Sean will help me fill in a little bit. And we talked about our Parks and Recreation projects that are coming up, the skate park and community park and the West Lawn 4th edition improvements, and those contracts being worked out. I don't believe there's a lot of dirt being moved around at Bakken Park, but none of the actual park improvements have started. Is that still okay?
Some tree planting.
Tree planting,
Yeah.
always a good thing. Then we talked about the Parks and Open Space survey results. So we went over the survey. You may have recalled that was out maybe April, May. We had only 230 responses this year, which was down from previous 492. But we did have increase in park usage for more of the unorganized use of parks, which throughout the pandemic, that's kind of as expected. People were very interested in paved trails. There was a lot of daily use of paved trails reported in the survey. Playground use then is up and organized sports down. We do have some opportunities for increasing paved trails when the farm develops, the whole West Lawn area where we have trails started. So that's going to feed into our Parks and Open Space plan, working with Aaron on that. Then we also talked about, which is our discuss and consider here, our program fee is increasing with ActiveNet, which is the registration company we use to register for our software. So tonight, as recommended by the committee, to increase our rates to coincide with that increase in transaction charges. We did also talk about scholarships that are available because we did discuss the impact that might have on some members of our community. Sean, did you have anything you want to add to that? Otherwise, question.
Yeah, it's a 4% increase, so it's 4% of 1.8, which is really about 1.9. It goes up to about 1.9, but as our registration go up, and so do our ActiveNet costs. And we took away the fee for people to register online, so now we eat that fee, or we pay that fee. So as our numbers go up, so does our costs for working with ActiveNet. So this $5 is not going to necessarily be across the board. There are certain programs like, say, a cookie class. If you're already paying $20 for 3 cookies, you don't want to pay $30 for 3 cookies. So we'll keep those types of programs right where they are.
Sounds like good cookies.
Must be big.
All right. Anything else, Heidi?
I think that was all we covered in our meeting. Welcome any questions, or if Sean had anything to add, otherwise, that consideration.
All right, so we have a discuss and consider for the program fee to coincide with the ActiveNet price increase. We have a motion on that.
I'll make a motion that we raise program costs by $5 each, beginning with the fall winter guide as written in the staff memo.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, David. Any further discussion? Sean, do you know if that'll make the print date and everything in the fall guide?
Yes, it will. We're doing edits and stuff now, but yes.
Yeah. Okay, good. All right, any other further discussion? Having heard none, then, all those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. All right, then Heidi, you're up again for Public Works.
Yep, thanks. We met on the 12th, and we talked about the draft bike and pedestrian plan, which JJ has been working hard on. If you had an opportunity to look over the plan, I think it's an excellent start to kind of a comprehensive look at our bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure in the village, and kind of the vision that we have for the future and where we want to go with it and where we are now. So I'm really excited about it, and we'll keep working on that and kind of envision it as a living document that will continue to update as things change and the vision gets clearer in various neighborhoods, but keeping bicycling and pedestrian alternative transportation as priority in our planning of our public works projects. We talked about the solar panels out for bid. I think the opening is Friday. All right. So we'll have more on that coming up. We have a discuss and consider. I guess I have the Purple Cow on the Public Works agenda first. So as you know, we have our compost station at the old Public Works building, and we had been hauling, actually it needed to be separated because some things could only go to the certain compost and then some things were brush. So that was going over to Hamburg's, and now Brian worked to collect a bid from Purple Cow, and it's just down the street, and they can take the brush and grass clippings and leaves, compostable things. Small brush, we're still going to offer the brush pickup for the larger brush, but sometimes people would bring smaller shrubbery clippings. So that'll all be able to go to Purple Cow. And we're also losing space at Bakken Park with that expansion there where we're doing the wood chipping and stuff now. So reducing that, we'll be able to take everything over to Purple Cow. I don't know if you have anything to add. Otherwise, that's what we're considering.
Yeah, nope, yep. Yeah, that's perfect. We still aren't going to be able to offer a formal brush drop-off site yet, but this is a step that maybe gets us closer. But yeah, just a great deal across the board for the village and the public works staff.
JJ, quick question on the agreement. It says the contract price is based on the assumption the village will deliver 425 tons of waste per year. Are we at, below, above? What are we? I'm trying to gauge right where we're at in terms of tonnage.
I think that number is just a little bit above I think it was a 3-year average we used.
Okay.
I don't think they needed to be that precise. We're not a a big customer for them, so they just wanted kind of assurances that we're not going to show up with 900 next year.
Okay, thank you.
So will village residents have access to the chipped wood
We,
anymore?
yep, Brian's talked about, we've always let people know kind of informally, we had a chip pile that you're welcome to come and take some if you'd like. We're talking about finding a spot where, when the staff does chip, and it's a good-looking load, somebody has, a good tree that's not a messy one, we'll dump it in a designated spot, and that can be the stuff that we can direct people that they can take.
Okay, so Purple Cow won't be taking all of the wood chips?
They'll take the vast majority of it. We've never gotten the public to really significantly take enough to help us. It's a pain to get rid of that stuff. So this is a really, for a million different reasons, this was a great deal.
My one concern with it is, since we're going with a private company on something that was a public service, what happens, like,
We're not really. All they're doing is, sorry to interrupt.
oh, that's
just-
okay, I know your face.
They're replacing what Hamburg did for us and then just offering more because of the operation they have on my road. So we were just, Brian reached out just looking for options with the storm that came through. All of a sudden, we had even more all at once, and he started asking questions. And then they said, well, they'll take everything. If it's simpler to grab, even just a brush collection, just with the grapple loaded in a truck, we can take it right to Purple Cow versus having the staff chip it. But they're also taking our compost, which we reached out to Hamburg and just let them know, but they don't have the space or the interest in taking brush and wood chips. So now we get it all to one place
So it's-
within the budget we've had for forever.
And Hamburg's okay with not getting all the compost now?
No, but, I think they enjoyed having, it was a good deal for both, but we found a better deal.
We just have to come up with more compost.
That feels like a loaded question.
So this is a one-year contract, though, right?
I think, forgive me, Rick looked at it. I believe it's one that, it's the nicely worded, we can just keep it going unless somebody gives notice.
Yeah, okay. Or unless they raise the price on us, or, and it's easy-ish enough for us to take it back over because we still have all the equipment.
Yep.
Just maybe not the manpower at that point.
Human power.
Feels like another loaded question.
I just want to know the full scope before, so, it sounds like a good deal. And it sounds like something that, a service that our residents need and that we need to help us with these things. So I appreciate us having this opportunity.
Just to follow up on that, we drive the stuff to Hamburg now, and we'll continue then to drive it to?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. That's the only, I think Brian, if he's on, Brian must just be much more charming than I am. Any of you recall when Dane County stopped taking compost 4 years ago, I think they announced it, and I reached out to everyone. I found the old proposal I got from Purple Cow, and they only offered me their Windsor DeForest site, and the price was higher. So Brian got us something closer and cheaper years later. So I don't know. I think we've got another good hire.
And the county is looking at opening their site hopefully in 2 to 3 years too,
Perfect.
depending on how it goes.
All right, so this is a discuss and consider. Any other questions on entering a contract with Purple Cow?
Did you say it would start right away, JJ?
Yes.
Okay. I'll make the motion that we enter into the contract with Purple Cow for compost and brush disposal.
All right, thank you, Sarah. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, David. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Oops, anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. We got you in there, David. The audio is just a little delayed. Then we have the consideration for the bus road build-out.
Yep. So not everyone was on the board then, so I'll just go back briefly. Our previous village engineer had looked at a future vision for Bus Road as kind of proposals for Shady Grove, the school, the Hamburg West Lawn neighborhoods were coming together, and what Bus Road might look like in the future. And the school ended up building kind of a temporary, smaller version of that. So now working with Josh and the team at Strand, maybe we might want to reconsider it was a 4-lane proposal at that time, the vision, and maybe we might want to rethink how that would look in the future and how we would want that to build out as Heyday comes through and it kind of pieces start to come together and maybe look at things differently. So, Josh, I don't know if you have,
Yeah.
want to take it from there? Or?
I think you summed it up. You summed it up well. You know, it's always thought to be this 4-lane boulevard section, so it'd have a grass median with 2 lanes in each direction. And when you look back at, I'm going to share maybe my screen here. Hold on. When you looked at Shady Grove, you can see the map here on the screen. I'm going to zoom in. Bus Road comes from Cottage Grove Road down along this section. You carved out 100 feet of right-of-way, which was good, and it allowed you still to build out this roadway, but you put one lane in each direction, which makes sense. You know, if you were to, and then if you've gone out there, you'll see that this is all just kind of median space now where it will be grassed in. So it's going to be topsoil and grass. Why not put all 4 lanes in to begin with? Just more to maintain, probably not used. You're going to end up after 10 years having to, you know, crack fill that, and 20, 25 years have to mill and overlay it. And it likely isn't going to be used in that time frame. So for a lane in each direction, you can handle, you know, 10,000 plus vehicles of traffic a day. When you look at the map, let me see if I can share the map of the DOT's count map here of the village. Oh, I had it up before. Just looking at that here, you know, 10,000 vehicles a day. If I zoom in to Bus Road, there really isn't a count on it right now. But along Cottage Grove Road in 2018, they're counting right around 7,800. We were talking to Pam Dunphy, the county deputy commissioner there, and she said, you know, they have no plans to go to 4 lanes in the near future, even with those traffic volumes. They'd have to see quite a bit more traffic before they do that there. You know, when we get to the 10,000 range, you're really looking up over here into the north end where you're at Commerce Parkway, where you're starting to see 10,000, where they counted it. That's probably your highest volumes today. That starts to speak to that 4-lane corridor. So it's going to be quite some time. So when we went back and we were thinking about it, is I don't think it's wrong to require that 100 feet of right-of-way for this corridor, but when we're planning it, do we really want to build out something that large? Maybe instead we do what we're doing along Bus Road, where we build a single lane in each direction, maybe even add a buffered bike lane if we want in each direction along that road to create space for extra pavement with a median and a multi-use path that's running north and south. And, you know, we need to think that way as we have Heyday come in and what we're going to require of them. And then also I know the school has this temporary kind of agreement with what they built out there, and that really doesn't have a boulevard section at all. It has pavement and then more of a middle paved lane that they use as a left turn lane that they'll have to address in the future. So I guess we were coming back to this committee. I think what Works decided was we want to plan to ultimately have the right of way. We really don't need to build or require maybe some of the development today to build these large sections, knowing that traffic really doesn't warrant it at this time.
So how does that change what the school district has to do?
Yeah. 1 second. Let me stop sharing this and go back to that other. we talked about that a little bit at the committee level, and we looked at this Shady Grove section, and I added on to it then, let me just jump down. I added on to what this could be. If you were to expand it north, you could have a 5-foot bike lane with a 2-foot buffered, kind of bike lane and a 12-foot lane, and then have this median of 16 feet. And what you could do there then is carve out left turn bays then within that median and still have a 6-foot dedicated median for crosswalks. So you could even get by with a lot more capacity by just carving out right turn bays and left turn bays within this scenario without adding that 4 lane and still get up into 14,000+ vehicles if you restrict a lot of access along there and only allow major corridor entrances. So we looked at, well, what would that look like then on Bus Road today and what they did. So here's the entrance, the first entrance to the school today, and I laid that those 2 red lines out. So here's the entrance. We're looking north would be to the right of this page. South would be to the left. What they put out here is in black today, so they just kind of paved 3+ lanes of pavement, but they didn't put the median in. The green would represent that kind of median, and this 24 feet would represent what could be a bike lane with a buffer and another 12-foot lane with your curb. This is a curb-to-curb width in there, and then that also gives space for left and right-hand turn lanes. So they've left a lot here that is not urbanized. They've left a ditch. They've left, they don't have storm sewer that's along there, and they don't have this outer curb. Now they set the path out here at the right-of-way, so it still provides a perfect spot where they put the path that we won't have to touch, but they would have to expand that corridor, at least in their direction, and probably the other direction, because it's township, I think was the agreement, so both sides would have to be expanded. The good thing is the other side is about expanded to where it needs to be for the curb, so the west side is where it needs to be, but it needs to come closer to the school side when they urbanize that section and bring it out. They'll be able to save some of that pavement out there, but they'll still have to kind of cut a median down it, put curb in, so there's
So it's less than what they were thinking they would need to do, right?
likely.
Because we were thinking they would need to do 4 lanes.
Yes. It would be less than putting all 4 lanes in today.
Yeah.
And I think it's the practical way to do it, because I think that would just cost you more money down the road maintaining that when you likely probably wouldn't need it, until well into the future, if at all, depending on how that urbanizes the rest of the corridor and the traffic that you receive.
Josh, I guess I'm confused. I'm kind of shocked at any point anybody thought a 4-lane road would make sense in that portion of the village. I guess I'm still struggling why we need to be. Like, I drive my wife takes my son to Granite Ridge every day. When school's in session, I go probably 2 to 3 days a week. The turn lane is working just fine. I guess I'm struggling as to, I make an argument for a bike path, but for a median, I guess, with turn lanes already existing, I guess I'm struggling to see what is the benefit of the median.
Right. This was before my time, but my guess is, and others here that maybe were part of that conversation can share, my guess is this is an arterial, right? This would be a collector, a major collector, or an arterial where Bus Road here would, it's kind of hard to see. I'm going to try to go to the area. Oh. Bus Road would be this arterial from, Gaston down to Vilas, right? And when you have the room and you can plan it, I'm thinking some of it was a corridor aesthetic, a look of what you would want if you could get it early. Medians are always nicer. They drive a little bit nicer. You separate traffic in either direction. You allow, it gives you the space to cut left turns in at a later date. I'm guessing that's probably the conversation that was had at the time. 4 lanes, I'm not sure. There was an older school way of looking at stuff, build it large, and I see it more, especially the last 10 years plus, as everybody's taking these larger roads, and they're doing road diets and they're narrowing them. It's going the other way. So maybe some of the thought was to build this large to begin with, but And the boulevard is more of an aesthetic and to separate traffic and to provide a median refuge as you get more traffic. You know, a planning sense of your outer arterial or major collector that would be to your east. I don't know if anybody has any comments to that.
Oh, just, I think you're, that is generally, I think, how things progress to that. I just had a question. So when you, 4 lanes, would that be, 4 lanes would be good up to 20,000 plus? Is that right?
Yeah.
So when you hear of 7,500, 8,000 per day traffic counts on Cottage Grove Road right now, which is 4-lane with separation, it's like even that was built larger than was needed, and even with a lot of other development, it'll be a long time before you reach 20 a day.
It's Monona Drive. It's about.
Yeah, Monona Drive.
Would be kind of a comparison, 16 to.
And that's under 20. Even Monona Drive is under 20, yeah.
Josh, if you look at some of the other, if you scroll back up to Cottage Grove, I guess I'm struggling here in my head, and maybe it's because I'm not thinking longer term here, but like, I can't think of a similar road that I would compare bus to, you know, because forget for a second, you know, the town of Midville, right? Like, you think about Violet, like that's an arterial road, right? But it only has 1,700 cars on it south of Cottage Grove. It has thousands of cars a day. You know, if I'm thinking about from a look and a feel perspective, to me, maybe this is just showing my bias here, but I'm more biased towards bike paths and sidewalks here on bus than I am on creating a boulevard. And I guess I can buy the, you know, what is the value because you can cut in certain ways later, but you know, I don't know, I'm really struggling with like seeing the value, you know, longer term. And maybe it's just because I'm not, when you drive down this cornfield on both sides, like maybe I'm just not seeing it longer term, but once you urbanize it, I still think that traffic counts, I think traffic counts on Violet is still more than what's on the bus longer term, but I'm happy to be wrong about that.
David, I think one of the things that went into it, if I remember correctly, was just kind of a visual hierarchy of the streets. Like if Bus Road feels like a grander street, people are going to be less inclined to go up Damascus and through those.
There's some truth to that. If you build it in a certain fashion, they'll use those ones that have a little bit better capacity. Yeah.
I mean, but if I live on Killian or Morning Dove, I'm not going to go all the way to bus to get the gas. I'm just going to take whatever's closer. Right. So while I do agree with the point, right? There's geographies, you know, in distance still trumps, you know, what you feel. I feel like. I mean, living on Damascus, like I'm living this, right? Having these conversations, Aaron, you've been in these conversations too, right? Like we just know that people are going to, if given the choice, they're gonna take Damascus over the bus. And, once London, and I'm just going off my own personal experience. Once London goes through, I'm absolutely gonna stop taking it. I'm just gonna cover the bus. So I'm just trying to think where traffic originates to, like source and destination, right? I'm just thinking about. To me, and I'm curious if any other board members feel like this. I just don't feel like the medium is all that important, and it feels like you have one more thing to take care of 15, 20 years down the road.
Just to weigh in a little bit on, you know, thinking it's cornfield on both sides now, but eventually there will be development. I think in Hamburg's West Lawn plan, the west side of Bus Road, but closer to Gaston is part of that large plan, and then with the large park that's in the plan, people want to cross Bus Road, and crossing, you know, a collector street can be pretty stressful for pedestrians, so to have that median in the center to go for safety and crossing, I think would be beneficial. And the bike path is still planned for the east side of Bus Road, just like what the school is built now. So just planning those types of kind of safety areas for pedestrians, I think would be beneficial. And then slowing traffic down by having your one lane in each direction in that area would be beneficial, and especially versus the 4 lanes that could kind of turn into sort of a speedway along Bus Road instead of, you know, 1 lane. You have someone going 25, you have to follow them going 25 as it becomes more residential in that area. And the environmental aspect that we could plant trees in the median, and I know that's more to maintain, but that would also help reduce the heating effect of having that much pavement in one spot. As the trees matured, they would help shade that too. So that was kind of some of the conversations we had at Public Works on that also.
Thank you. Heidi, I think you covered everything. I was trying to jump in and say, I think somewhat anecdotally, but a lot of the respondents to the survey we had out probably wish that N north of here was a 2-lane with a median where we could start offering, you know, pedestrian crossings with a safe landing spot and things. Yeah, I think you touched on everything though.
Sorry to steal your thunder.
No,
JJ.
that's how I prefer it.
I guess just to ask you the question, right? You were in that conversation. I guess I'm thinking now versus longer term, right? Because you can always expand the road, right? You can always.
As long as you got the right of way.
Yep, as long as you're getting the right of way.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which is what's been designed right now.
Yep.
Sure. But I guess help me understand the timing, right? Like, I want to get here, right? And be in the same page here. Like, for me, when I hear about this plan, I'm looking at the agenda, right? Like, this is giving direction to recommend a 2-lane road with a boulevard. I guess my big question is, what is timing? Do we have to, if we vote on it tonight, does that set it in stone that it'll be a 2-lane with a boulevard forever forward?
I'll just chime in with what understanding I think at committee, and then correct me if I'm wrong. It's that this is what we would start to require from developers as Bus Road becomes developed. Although the school has part of their agreement that they have to do something in order of how things are developed, so I'm not sure exactly the details of that, but this would be more so developers know what we're going to require of them.
That's accurate, Heidi. Or until there's a new village engineer.
That's a good point.
I'm just kidding, Josh.
That's a good point. I'm trying to remember, Heidi, what came out of that meeting was, I think the group decided that they wanted to maintain this 100-foot right-of-way, which is very important, and that we didn't restrict the ability to have a 4-lane if we needed a 4-lane someday, but we maybe didn't need it right now, right? I think is kind of what came out of that to some degree. Does that seem right, or?
Yeah, because the median did give you the opportunity
Yep.
that you could have
You could
that.
expand it.
Because then if you try to kick the curb out in the future, then you could be met with a lot of pushback from existing. So if you had that right of way up
Right.
front, it would be easier
Right.
in the future.
I think, David, part of the thought was when a developer comes through, what do we tell them they're going to build, right? If we tell them they're going to build this narrow road that remains with a ditch and everything else, and we don't urbanize, then someday you're going to have to expand outward. Or do we set the outer footprint of what that road's going to be, set the curbs, maybe set the storm, and leave a larger median? Then that gives the village the opportunity to expand within this median space and maybe not cost as much later in the future to expand outward and add some of those other things that maybe the developer could foot the bill for at the beginning because they are urbanizing that frontage. We kind of went back and forth with that a little bit at the meeting.
Okay. I guess I'm gun shy here just because of, on the housing committee, we talked a lot about road widths.
Yeah.
Right? And I fully understand the right of way. It's government spending, right? So use it or lose it. Like, I get that. But at the same point, it just seems like an awful lot of road, right, to lay down and build. But it sounds like timing, it's not like tomorrow that this is going to be implemented. This is school district has to do some things, and then further development as you get north on Bus. So I guess I think, and then, you know, Heidi, to your point around from an environmental perspective, it's, the less concrete, the less blacktop you have, the better for the environment. So I guess I'm getting there. I'll put it that way.
All right, this is a discuss and consider. Is there consideration for motion then?
Do you think you have enough, Josh, from our conversation, if we just said, approve the direction on the bus road build-out?
Yeah.
What, I'm actually
how detailed the
confused.
bus is.
I'm actually confused where we're landing, actually. Like, are we talking about the boulevard? Are we just talking about a 2-lane road now?
So, right, I mean, kind of what you required of Shady, right? You required with sidewalk and multi-use path, curb and gutter, with a large median that will remain for future use.
Right.
So is the motion from the plan committee reasonable of constructing a 2-lane road with boulevard and path? Would that work for the motion tonight?
I think so. Yeah. I think-
Is that where folks are? Is that where you?
Yeah, I think so. It was just that motion, we went back to the meeting, and it was
Check
not
Aaron,
worded
Josh and Matt. and Mike.
great, but, yeah, I think that covers it.
Okay. Well, then
Well,
I'll,
Okay, because otherwise we're going to be doing what we're doing right now on Highway N, and the taxpayers are paying for that, urbanizing that section, so. Because the curb and gutter is going to last you well over 50 years, as
Yep.
long as you got it where you want it.
Yep.
And you fill in the middle when you need it.
Yep.
that's what this motion would
Yeah.
include, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the motion.
And that's what we were doing before, though, right?
Before it was going to be a 4-lane.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, okay. That's where
I mean, the thought was that 4 lanes, I think when the school and everybody was talking, there was going to be 4 lanes right away. Not sure to that extent.
No.
But we can plan strategically a little different and get the same thing if we need it in the future. I think in a more affordable fashion, for the village.
I'm on board with that.
Okay, then I'm going to make the motion that we recommend plans to construct a 2-lane road with a boulevard and path on Bus Road.
Second.
All right, thank you, Sarah, thank you, Melissa. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
John, just maybe a slight change to that, instead of recommend, approve.
Approve, okay.
Yeah.
Approve.
Yeah, second.
You're okay, okay. All right, thanks, Matt. So, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. All right, we'll move then to.
I had a
oops.
couple other things,
Oh,
just
please.
briefly on Public Works, sorry, John.
No, it's all right.
So we also talked about new construction requirements or recommendations. This came from former Sustainability Committee Chair Nick Hess, and he would like to, this will come forward in the future, recommend that we implement certain sustainability kind of minimum requirements for future municipal buildings or improvements, additions. So that will be kind of in discussion at committee level. Also talking about incentives for new construction buildings to incorporate more sustainable things in their new construction buildings. So new homes having wiring put in for EV chargers in the future to the garage because it's easier to do when it's under construction. So we're going to continue to discuss those things and perhaps come forward with some recommendations to the board. And then I feel like there was one other thing. The County Highway N repaving, we talked about some options that we could consider for that, if we would close one side of N and leave the other side open as we do the final pavement. So we decided to recommend going ahead forward with that rather than shutting the whole road down altogether and rerouting for a couple of days. Thought that was too much traffic to send into neighborhoods during that. And there's not a huge stretch of blacktop that would really make much of a difference anyway, because we have the median there. So the seaming would be minimal. And then our construction is ongoing, and I'm sure staff could answer any questions that you have with our ongoing road construction. Otherwise, I think that's all.
Okay. Any questions for Heidi? And I think everybody's experienced the ongoing construction, so it'll be nice when it's done. All right, then I will move over to Plan Commission. I'll take a swing at this, and then Heidi can jump in, or Aaron, whoever. So we met on the 13th July, had a public hearing for a conditional use permit for Madtown Detailing, which is discuss and consider for that application today. The Plan Commission recommended approval. This is at a site where there used to be the Valvoline oil change. It's right behind McDonald's there. It hasn't had anybody in there for some time. And so these are some folks that would like to do some detailing out of that building, and working with Andrew Homburg to make that happen. So held that. There was no real public comment. Commission went through the details of what Aaron's going to share in a little bit of this. So I don't know if, Aaron, you want to jump in there and tag in with this, and then.
You explained it pretty well. It's a big building, renovation for a while. Change facilities, it's vehicle use. It's considered a vehicle repair and maintenance land use. Best category if you put it in, more detailed category. It's really a less intensive use than a repair shop.
Can you turn your mic here?
Sorry about that. So just saying that this is considered a vehicle repair and maintenance land use because it's the closest fit. We don't have an auto detailing land use, but this would be a less intensive use than a repair shop or a full car wash. So really a good fit for a building that's been sitting around for a while, and we wouldn't expect any negative impacts on the surroundings from it. So the Plan Commission recommended approval, and we had no conditions on it.
Except for signage. Although there's an existing sign there, isn't there?
Yeah, they've already submitted something for that.
Okay.
And the applicants are online, it looks like, if you have questions, but it's all pretty straightforward.
Any questions from board members on that?
Very exciting to have something in there finally.
Yep, people are keeping their cars longer.
Mm-hmm.
I heard some excitement already from a couple people that were very happy about this business, I believe, expanding and moving to this location, so.
So I'll make a motion
Yes, please.
to, I'm going to get the words right finally on my motions tonight, to approve the application from Madtown Detailing for approval of the conditional use permit to allow a vehicle repair and maintenance land use, an auto detailing business in an existing commercial land space located at 425 West Oak Street.
Second.
All right, thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Heidi. Any further discussion on this item? With that, then, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. The rest of Plan Commission consisted of a concept. We were supposed to have one concept for a mixed-use project on a property, for a couple properties on Gaston. That fell through, so we didn't get that. But we did get one from Badger Land Realty for additional development of Market Place Center, shopping center. Everybody knows as Piggly Wiggly and the associated businesses there. This was to put a 22-unit apartment building actually behind that building, so you wouldn't really see it from the pig. And there would be studio and one-bedroom concept. Bill walked through that. He's done a delineation study, so there's a parcel within there that could be used for this. The commission did not really, we're looking for more consideration of how full the existing apartments are, concerned with that. And then a little bit of discussion about just, access. So I don't know, Bill, what Bill will do with that information, but it does have that feedback from commission. And that was it for Plan Commission. Hear anything else I missed, or?
That was it.
Or Heidi? Okay.
Maybe one thing to note there, John, is it would need to move forward, it would need a change in the comprehensive plan.
Yes.
So that's one of the areas that the Plan Commission could, if they don't approve it, it essentially dies there. So there's a chance it wouldn't be moving forward based on the feedback if the developer does choose to bring it forward. But it was just an early concept level, and we'll be in touch with him and see where he wants to take things.
Thanks, Matt. With that, then we'll move right to, unless there's questions, we'll move right to Tourism Commission. Melissa?
Yeah, Tourism Commission, we are putting Gabe to work right off the bat. We are talking about our centennial celebration, and he has a whole bunch of ideas flowing. But we had good conversation too with our members, John and Britt, about ideas for that. And John was able to talk with the Historical Society and got some information. And what, Lisa, you confirmed it, didn't you? Or was it Aaron?
Found it.
October 15th of 1924, we officially became a village, apparently. So we have a date now to go off of, and we're still thinking of ideas, and so that was most of the discussion at Tourism Commission. We also, well, maybe it was half, I don't know, but the other part was the workshop session for looking at working with the Chamber of Commerce as a tourism entity, but so we were discussing what the hotel, basically what they wanted more of, basically, I think is kind of the best way. And so more business is what they want. So we're looking at ways to encourage more business patrons to stay overnight. And so we'll be bringing that back next month. We're going to keep looking at this chart that Aaron put together for us that's kind of guiding us. And then we'll also talk more about the celebration for the centennial. And while it's a year and a half away, it's going to be here in no time, especially since we have such big ideas for that whole year. We're going to have to maybe pare it down a little. But so lots of fun stuff going on in Tourism Commission.
All right. Any questions for Melissa? And it is very exciting by, I'd say, really cool stuff. We'll move then to Police Commission. Lieutenant, are you standing in for Chief?
I can do that. They met on Wednesday, July 13th. They went through, as we all know, the pending retirement of Chief Labor is coming up slowly but surely. So we're trying to get the ball rolling to get his and my new boss in place. So I don't have to do too much work come January 1. So we went through the police job description. They also went through their bylaws to just update everything since it's been about 6 years or 7 years since Dan's been here, just to make sure everything is in line with current practices and then also with our current accreditation status, putting that all into place. They did go into closed session to figure out how they wanted to do the process, and they have chosen to use Matt's recommendation of GovHR. So they will be utilizing the firm to look for Dan's successor.
The same recruiting service and person that has been assisting us with all of our recent hires of middle management and up.
All right. Any questions for Lieutenant Wagner?
And just a note too, that the difference here is that the recruiter will be coordinating that with, entirely with the police commission, and the primary point of contact is the chairperson of the commission, Jeff Stadmiller, and they'll, certainly staff is here to assist however they would like, but it's entirely their process.
Right. All right.
I just had a question with that. It's on, yeah. So does the board get the ultimate approval of whoever is hired, or is that all on the police commission?
It's all on the police commission. Just any sworn officer, hire, fire, discipline is entirely up to the commission. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
They may, through their process and working with their recruiter, there's a whole bunch of different ways to do it, but generally there's some, there could be some public community input with some finalists. There could be, various panels of stakeholders, which might include, some board members for input. It might include business people, our staff. I mean, there's all sorts of different ways to put it together, but I'm sure they'll be reaching out and figuring out how they want to handle that.
All right, thank you. Next up, then, we have reports from village officers. I think Larry's on. Yes, he is. Anything from you, Larry?
Can't hear you.
You're really faint.
No.
Oh, I don't know if we want that. All right. Thanks, Larry. Then for myself, we have a nomination for the CDA, Jess Robertson. Jess is formerly of the Ordinance Committee, and I reached out to those folks to see if they wanted to be any of the spots that we have open, and Jess raised his hand, so he completed the form and everything, so he's here for consideration for the board.
I greatly appreciated Jess's service on the Ordinance Review Committee, and I'm very happy to see that he was interested in serving on another committee. So I will make a motion to approve the nomination of Jess Robinson to the Community Development Authority.
And I'll happily second it.
All right. Thank you, David, and thank you, Heidi. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor, then?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. Next up, we have JJ.
Real brief memo in your packet, and I guess essentially the rock underneath the town's portion of Clark Street is insufficient. Actually, all reports are there's not a whole lot of rock. The town is considering payment to replace that subgrade tonight at their meeting. At this point, we have our attorneys, actually Rick called me this afternoon looking at the town's draft agreement. Assuming that can all be worked out, we just need basically the board's approval to enter into that agreement that we'd pay for it as a part of our contract, and the town would reimburse us for that. At this time, I guess there's still questions on that language, but assuming our legal folks give us the okay, we're just looking for the board's approval to handle it this way.
JJ, I'll just add that I got an email just now from Kim saying that the town board did approve that agreement.
Okay, well then I think we just have to have a call with Rick Unless Larry's up to speed, I know he may not have had the chance to, but I talked with Rick earlier, and maybe Josh and I owe him a call tomorrow.
Nice to have it all consistent and all up to a good standard so it lasts, whether it's in the town or the village.
I'll make a motion to approve the collective growth fee agreement for reimbursement between the town and village Cottage Grove as written in the minutes.
Second.
Thank you, David, and thank you, Sarah. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. All right. Gabe, you're up.
Well, thank you. As you all know, this is my second meeting, and so we've had a few updates since my first day. You'll notice we now have a full variety of social media accounts at our disposal, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Spotify, and I'm saying Spotify because one of my goals, and I don't have a better word for it yet, but podcast, educational series. Each month I'm going to do a 5-minute video or just a conversation about a particular department, person, service, event, something like that. It's going to be called Living in the Grove. And Spotify will be hosting when it's just a conversation or just an introduction to a staff member, department head, service, and then YouTube and our website will be used for the video part of it.
Any
as-
music in there?
Oh, yeah.
Spotify?
We'll have some music.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. We're going to have a cool intro. Don't you worry.
I thought somebody could create some music. There we go.
That's way above my wheelhouse.
Are you gonna sing?
People will leave, yes.
If you've noticed on our website, we've made quite a few just kind of minor adjustments. We now have a projects page on our website, so all public works, Parks and Rec, and economic development projects are now in one central hub. I've also kind of cleaned up that main homepage. There was many ways to find the same thing, and so now there's just one seamless way to find almost everything. And if you can't find it right away, we have that big search bar. It's pretty easy to use. The village board now has kind of a page for each board member, what committees they're on, a little bio, so check that out. We've also implemented a content calendar for the departments to use, and so when they need postings or there's something big happening like elections, Lisa's put in when we need to absentee ballots, last day for voter registration, stuff like that, so we can kind of manage and organize things better. And a project that you'll get frequent updates as time moves on, but we're creating an employee intranet, so that is more of a human resources and staff portal for everything that they need as a village staff member. So open enrollment questions, time off questions, pay, benefits, that kind of stuff. And onboarding. One of my projects is kind of redeveloping as we're growing and adding more staff. How are we getting them introduced to the staff? How are we getting them introduced to being a public servant? And that's a big part of keeping retention and recruitment. And so we're going to be developing that throughout the next. And we're using that through Microsoft SharePoint, and so we already own it, and every staff member can use it, and so we're not actually adding anything, just staff time to create it and maintain it. And that's kind of for me.
Thanks, Gabe.
Gabe's modesty left off that the Facebook page is up between 200 and 300% on all of our metrics since he joined, so.
Well, it's because he's pinging it all the time.
Right.
It's just me liking and I'm liking and liking and I'm liking.
But good luck keeping that trajectory.
And then you'll also notice the addressing the board packet. We're going to be creating additional just memos, introductory to just kind of explain, like if we have a resident that wants to speak to you, what are the rules of that? Do they get 3 minutes? They may not be getting questions from the board. Why is that happening? It's not that they didn't like what you're saying or that the board is rude or anything like that. It's just that's how policy is set. So expect that. Just kind of more clarity that's kind of easy to have and easy around. So just kind of updates like that.
And one last, maybe a rollout of a summary of, instead of just a link that's on our social media to say, here's the agenda for today, not changing any of the items, but a summary so people don't even have to click on the link. It's, here are the 10 action items on the agenda. So something like that is likely forthcoming as well, so.
Anything to make it easier for people to get involved and be informed is a great thing. Any questions for Gabe? All right. Next up, then, we have communication listed as business, starting off with consideration for the vouchers. Any questions, comments on the list?
I'll make a motion to approve the vouchers as presented.
All right. Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Chris. Any further questions, or, any further discussion or questions? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Correspondence, I don't have anything. I don't know if anybody else has anything.
I did have a couple residents reach out about fireworks this year, and they were concerned about the number and what felt like the type of fireworks were probably the illegal ones. So I know all of our boards were busy this year with traffic, all of our construction projects, and we have more on order, but hopefully we can work on ways to reduce that in the future, I guess was the gist of their comments next year, because it'll come around again.
Yeah, I think it's pretty simple. I think Chief Labor said it, anything off the ground is illegal.
I think we'll use our communication director next year to really get the word out of what is illegal.
All right. All right, then we'll move back to, thank you, Heidi, to upcoming community events. I'll just do a quick shout out to staff for market days, as well as any board members who were in the tent covering that over those 5 hours or so. Thank you very much. I think it was a well-attended, a lot of great people out and about, families and kids and et cetera. So, or even some of us got a little bit wet too, so.
I was gonna say, also to our president, who was in the dunk tank, getting dunked a few times. I restrained myself and didn't throw any balls.
I was surprised they didn't have a line of board members and staff.
I just watched.
Yeah.
Right across. Great.
50-degree water?
Something like that. It wasn't too bad.
I will add, John, if we can, that we'll be participating in National Night Out again this year. It'll be August 2nd, Tuesday, August 2nd, so it's the day after the next board meeting, but gives everyone 2 weeks now to plan. It will be at Glacial Drumlin Middle School, and the times have spaced me at the moment, but it's, I believe it's 4 to 6:30. We will have, the Dane County Sheriff's Department will be assisting us again this year, so we'll have a lot of apparatuses and hands-on things up at this event that the community's welcome to, and we hope that they come out to. And for Sean, there will be free hot dogs again this year. So we look forward to everyone being out there and having a meet and greet.
All right. Thanks, Lieutenant. We do have Music in the Grove this week at Bakken, 21st. Farmers Market's coming up on the 28th. And there's something about a little garage sale going on the first weekend, full weekend in August around the community too. Those are the ones that I picked off along with Lieutenant. Any others that you want to note?
On Friday, August 5th, Dolphin Swim Academy is having their grand opening and ribbon cutting. I'm pretty excited about it. We invited the chamber. Everyone in the village is welcome to attend as well. Ribbon cutting is at 3:30, and then 4 to 6. We're having Kona Ice come out and giving away cake.
And then jump in the pool and get all cleaned up?
We'll have some free swimming.
All right. Any other things coming up? All right. Still lots of summer activities going on, which is great. Then we'll move to future agenda items. We'll have the prioritization process kicking in. Anything else? Other than
Could we have an update from Lisa about the election, the primary election, and any info on that, just so that we can have it on the agenda for people to maybe be more aware?
Yes, you want that for the next meeting?
Yes.
Could we also post like the early voting hours on Facebook? Please and thank you.
That is on the calendar, it will be forthcoming. And just an FYI, in-person absentee voting starts next Tuesday.
Yeah. It's coming up. And there's a lot of exciting folks on the ballot too, so that's good. Anything else? All right, then we'll move right to, I'll make a motion to go into closed session to establishing a negotiation position for Deer Grove EMS and joint fire agreements. The Village of Cottage Grove Board will enter a closed session pursuant Wisconsin State Statute 19.85, parentheses 1, parentheses, E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting of other specified public business wherever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Melissa. With that, Lisa will do a roll call.
Ballwig. Here. Murphy.
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
Radcliffe.
Aye.
Stoa. Valencia.
Aye.
And Williams.
Aye.